Kyle Hamilton, Ravens extension. It is officially official. We break down all the details and a lot more coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, and we are here today with a jam-packed show. We have a lot to dive into. Obviously, the big news of the day, Kyle Hamilton is staying in Baltimore for the long haul. Huge extension. We're going to dive into all the details on that. Of course, we also, waivers, that is a thing that is happening today. And currently, as we're live here on Locked On Ravens, as we speak, the Ravens losing player or two to waivers. So we'll talk about that in the second part of the show. And then diving into general things, we might have some practice squad news break while we're live here today. So there's just a lot to get into. I want to thank everybody for being here today, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And also thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and of course, if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. Also want to tell you quickly, today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Well, let's dive into the big news. That is Kyle Hamilton, an extension that just needed to happen. The Ravens needed to try to get into this mode of getting extensions signed. And that is what happened. We've seen them extend Rashod Bateman. We've seen them extend Derrick Henry. Ronnie Stanley obviously got his as well. So, at the end of the day, the Ravens get the job done. This is a 4-year, $100.4 million contract for Kyle Hamilton. $82 million of that is guaranteed. That just absolutely blows the safety market out of the water here. For context, Kirby Joseph of the Lions, he signed a couple of months ago, $85 million in total value with a $21.25 million average annual value. So Kyle Hamilton gets almost $4 million more per season than Kirby Joseph got. Plus, in terms of the guaranteed money, Kyle Hamilton, he got 82. The next closest to him is Antoine Winfield Jr. at $45 million. Almost $40 million more guaranteed for Kyle Hamilton, as opposed to what we saw from Antoine Winfield. So look, this is very well deserved for Kyle Hamilton. This is something that, you couldn't have let Kyle Hamilton walk out of the building, right? You just couldn't have let that happen. So I'm glad that they were able to get the job done. It is official now. Eric DeCosta has announced it. And I like the Ravens doing it this way, where they actually go and sign the whole situation with Kyle Hamilton is you get him signed and you don't wait, right? You don't wait. Hamilton, it's going to be a 2-year deal, or not a 2-year deal, 2-year extension on top of what Hamilton earned. Obviously, it was this year for Hamilton. He had his 5th-year option. So I believe you're adding 2 more years onto that, which would put him there till 2030, if I'm doing the math, or doing some quick math here live on Locked On Ravens. This is a defensive centerpiece. This is a guy that absolutely earned and deserved this deal and this contract. So, for the Ravens, it could have been a lot of different players, right? Lamar obviously still up for an extension. Tyler Linderbaum still up for an extension. Eric DeCosta said he likes to work in the dark on some of these moves. So obviously those are other deals the Ravens would like to get done next. But just getting Hamilton done, and at that price point, I know $100 million, $82 million guaranteed, like all that seems like a lot of money for Kyle Hamilton, which, yeah, it is. But with the way the salary cap works and goes up and gets maneuvered, at the end of the day, Baltimore is going to look back on this deal in 2 years, 3 years, and find it to be an absolute steal. We're doing it with Lamar Jackson right now, right? Lamar signed that deal, huge contract, highest paid quarterback in NFL history. And now 2 years later, after signing that deal, he's now the 10th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, right? So that's the big and important thing. The Ravens have a lot of time to kind of have this deal marinate and say, all right, we signed him to a big deal, get that money out of the way now. But the thing, and Jake Lisco of Locked On Bengals, I credit him every single time I say this, it's save. The Bengals are a team that saves $1 million today to only have to spend $5 million tomorrow. Well, the Ravens, they spent $1 million today to save $5 million tomorrow, especially with other safety contracts. And again, I don't know, because Hamilton has the versatility that he does. I don't know if other safeties will begin to ask for $100 million, $25 million per year. But what I do know is that guaranteed money portion of it, that is the bigger reset of the market to me, at least in terms of what other negotiations will probably look like over the course of, the next handful of seasons for that positional group. And it's honestly why the Ravens didn't extend Tyler Linderbaum, well, not extend, but then pick up his 5th-year option, because that would have extended that safety market and blown that out of the water by, like $5 million. So you kind of have to pick and choose. And Eric DeCosta essentially during his press conference saying that, we're probably not going to keep everybody. He didn't say that word for word. He's obviously trying to get everybody. And we actually just got some breaking news on the waivers, so we'll get to that in a couple of minutes in terms of who was claimed and who was not. But, for me, there's just a lot to love here. I think it's honestly a really good deal. The longer you wait, the more you're going to have to pay the guy. So this is really big. This is really, really big. And for a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who can play every single position for you on defense, almost every, you're not going to line him up at nose tackle, but he can line up everywhere. He's a great blitzer off the edge. Obviously, the range is there. We saw that last season. Play up in the box. It's almost like its own position. It's like defensive weapon almost is what Kyle Hamilton's positional group is, or at least where he's classified as. He's not a traditional just single high safety or two high guy. Like he can go all over the place. So that market in particular, that's probably going to be a lot bigger of a deal. But yeah, this is a win for me. I give it an A grade for the Ravens. There's nothing not to like here, in my opinion. Nothing not to like. So Baltimore right now, they still have a lot of room to go in terms of extensions. I actually put out the extension tracker that I have been working with. And you still have guys. We talked about Lamar Jackson and Tyler Linderbaum. You also have to figure out Zay Flowers down the line. Obviously, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are both up for extensions after this season, as is Travis Jones, as is Odafe Owe. Marlon Humphrey, obviously, his deal's coming to a close. If you want to go way far down the line, Roquan Smith is up for an extension. I think he's in 3 years, so you really don't have to be worrying about Roquan right now. But yeah, this to me it's a big deal. It's a big deal. The Ravens are willing to pay their guys. And this is how the Ravens like to do it anyway, right? They like their homegrown talent. They like to go out there, draft well, develop well. And then by the time they're ready for extensions, they're not going to like cheap him out of contracts or anything. But if Hamilton hit the open market in 2 years when his 5th-year option was done, he would have probably gotten, like, at that point, 130, 125 million per season. Not per season. No, wow, that'd be crazy. Per year, it'd only be about still 25, 30, but he'd be getting a heck of a lot more money. And especially, I think, I'm not saying he gave like a home down discount or anything. I'm not saying that, but for a lot of those top end players, rarely do they even hit free agency in the first place. Like, you get it sometimes, but generally, when a team has a good player and you're a good team, you want to sign those guys to long-term deals. And the Ravens did that here today. Extension news. This was beautiful, honestly, to have happen right now. You wanted to get it done before the season. I'm not sure they get any other extensions. I mean, look, I'm hoping we can manifest that in the air if we want to. I'm trying to. But right now, the big thing for me is Hamilton is done. You don't have to worry about that. And outside of Lamar, that was the most important extension for me. So now, hopefully, attention does turn to Lamar. And, I'm seeing some of the comments. Edward, appreciate you checking in from the UK. Kyle Hamilton's the GOAT. Yeah, Hamilton. Yeah, and I see Boulder saying LJ next, hopefully before the season. I hope it's before the season. If it's not, I don't expect anything to happen in season for the Ravens with these extensions. I just don't. Lamar, last time the whole contract thing happened, made it pretty clear that he was not going to negotiate in season, which is fine. It's fine. It's not a huge deal. But so I'm expecting that to be kind of the same train of thought for him, for the Ravens and Lamar this time around. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see what they can get going here. And I see Steve saying Hamilton will be a Raven for life. Hopefully this is true. Through 2030, at least that's, again, what my math is telling me right now. That's expected to be big, right? It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm pumped. I'm through the roof. If you're with us in the chat live or in the comments after the fact, put down how you're feeling. 1 to 10. How you feeling? 1 being not great, 10 being exceptionally great. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of 1s. I'm a 10. I'm an 11. Honestly, we're wearing the celebratory shirt here on the stream. We always got the palm trees going when something celebratory happens. I see Emil here in the chat. Very excited for our defense this year. And that's the thing too, being able to go out there and make something happen. And Cube, I was about to say, we're feeling a 1, but Cube corrected from a 1 to an 11. We got Mikey at an 100. I might have to one up you. I might have to go 101. I might have to just keep going and going and going, because that is where we are right now. But for the Ravens, Hamilton, not the only piece of news. It's a big one because of what Hamilton brings to the table. And of course, just to look up his stats very quickly here to get a baseline of what he's been able to do in the league so far. And I'll give you I'll give you a cheat sheet. He's been very, very good over the course of his 3 years, in the NFL. This is his 4th year coming up. 250 total tackles, 4 forced fumbles, 27 passes defensed, 5 interceptions. And again, he's been an all-pro, Pro Bowl, like the whole 9 yards there. Kyle Hamilton is here to stay. But the Ravens, some players are not here to stay. Players get claimed on waivers. Multiple players are gone from the Ravens. They are claimed. We got the word just a couple of minutes ago, so we're going to react to who got claimed, who didn't. Can the Ravens sign a lot more guys to their practice squad? And who are those practice squad players going to be? All that and more coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. And for Yahoo Fantasy, the NFL season is right around the corner. You can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here, and everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. And with season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. If you want more ways to play, try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. If you prefer the classics, get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. If there's no crew, there's no problem. You can join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. We return Locked On Ravens live. Kevin Oestreicher reacting to the Kyle Hamilton news. Big news for the Ravens as they sign him to a 4-year, $100.4 million contract. 82 of that guaranteed. So appreciate everybody for being here. Again, we're a 5-day-week Ravens podcast, Monday through Friday. We have that regularly scheduled programming, 6 a.m. Eastern time for you. Plus, of course, we go live after every single piece of Ravens big news like this. We go live after every single Ravens game. We have the Locked On Ravens watch-alongs. We are just Ravens all the time here on Locked On Ravens. And look, I love it. I love that we can react to news like this. It obviously involved the community in it as well. Kieran, check it in. Appreciate you. We got him. The Ravens, they get Kyle Hamilton, reset the safety market. And you know what? We're probably going to be seeing some others reset the safety market, but they're not as good as Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton, the best safety in the NFL. But let's get to the waivers. All right. We just got some breaking news here on Locked On Ravens. The waiver claims have officially processed. And the Ravens had a little more claim, few more players claimed than I expected them to. 3 in total were claimed. 2 of them go to Tennessee. Now, Tennessee had the first waiver slot claim. They obviously were the worst team in the league last season, so obviously it just goes in reverse order. There's no news there. But Jalen Armour-Davis, he is out. He is going to Tennessee. No practice squad for JAD. He's in Tennessee, as well as CJ Ravenel, who goes to Tennessee as well. I thought CJ Ravenel had a really good preseason. I know the big name there is Jalen Armour-Davis, but losing Ravenel also is tough. I thought that he did enough to make the practice squad, and he clearly probably would have been there. But this is the name of the game for the Ravens. You go out there and make these decisions, make these signings, and you sign so many quality players, or you're just able to identify that talent. Well, you can't keep everybody. Eric DeCosta talked about that. The Ravens agonizing over their decision to cut JAD. They agonized over that. Now he lands in Tennessee, a good spot for him, a good spot for him. So I think it's tough to lose those two, but it's not unexpected. I guess the Ravenel one was a little more unexpected. I didn't expect JAD to stay in Baltimore. I thought someone would pick him up, and clearly the Ravens using their talent to make the best roster they can. I talked about this morning. It's a perfect roster, but with that does come, you got to move off of some talent there. The other one was Beau Brade. Beau Brade is gone. He is going to the Giants. And by the way, the connection with JAD and the Titans, by the way, Denard Wilson, the Ravens' former DB coach, is now the Titans' defensive coordinator. So just wanted to make that connection there. But Beau Brade is headed to the Giants. I don't know where I was on Beau Brade, for being honest. I mean, I thought that he would probably have made the practice squad, but that it wasn't about Beau Brade and his play necessarily. It was just about that others had performed better, like Keon Martin, like Ruben Lowry. So, I'm not shocked, but I'm also a little surprised, I guess. A little surprised. I think the big thing with the Ravens and all the talent that they have is you kind of have to prepare yourself for something like this. And we did a practice squad exercise on the live show yesterday, just reacting to the news. And I couldn't fit everybody on the practice squad if we had an ideal situation there. And we also are now getting word from Jeff Zrebiec that Lucas Scott, the fullback, is signing to the practice squad as well. There are also rumblings about Tyler Huntley being in Baltimore. I think who had that news? Matt Zenitz might have had that news, if I'm remembering correctly. Yep, here we go. Matt Zenitz, quarterback Tyler Huntley's in Baltimore today and has emerged as a potential practice squad candidate addition for the Ravens. The most obvious move ever, by the way. Obvious move ever. I have a very funny tweet to put out if that does happen. I did it last year when it happened. So, man, it's crazy. The Ravens are this factory of talent, right? They're this factory of talent. And I see Ravens 76 be more. I wish Brade the best. And this is a good analogy here from Steve, or a situation you can kind of look at this as. It's almost like a trade. Ravens get a Woozie and the Titans get Jalen Armour-Davis. You know what, Steve? I like that. And you know what I also like? I would take that move from the Ravens' perspective 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10. I think, look, Awuzie is a guy who probably wasn't expecting the JAD news, or not the JAD, the Jaire news. The Jaire thing probably pushed JAD out of a spot just because everyone goes down one spot on the depth chart. And again, if you're only keeping 6 corners, JAD was that one. If Jaire wasn't there, Jalen Armour-Davis probably makes the roster. But you know what? I'd rather have Jalen, or not. Wow. I'd rather have Jaire, not Jalen Armour-Davis. Excuse me. Jaire's been a guy I've been talking about for years, so I better want Jaire over Jalen Armour-Davis. But that's just what Jaire is. He's a guy that can elevate you, and not that Jalen Armour-Davis can't. The thing with JAD, and what we talked about this morning, we had Sam and Njoku on, talked about it on the live as well yesterday. It's like you build up all this anticipation for Armour-Davis. It's like, okay, there's all this potential, but it's just injuries are just sapping his career. And then he's finally healthy. I thought in week 1 and 3 of the preseason played really well. And then all of a sudden it's like, nah, actually, we're getting him out. We're getting him out of here. We're getting him out of here. So that was the tough thing for me, at least with the Jalen Armour-Davis. Not that it's like, oh, the Ravens aren't winning the Super Bowl because of Jalen Armour-Davis. No, it's a depth piece, and it gives them 6 corners. We talked about it on the show this morning, where Marlon Humphrey is your starter in the slot, and then you have Keon Martin as your backup. Pretty straightforward. You have 2 outside guys in, obviously, Nate Wiggins and Jaire Alexander, 2 backups in Chidobe Awuzie and TJ Tampa, and they just felt like they needed a spot elsewhere. I had Jalen Armour-Davis making the roster over John Jenkins, but, in reality, there probably wasn't going to be a world where Jenkins didn't make the roster. So, it is what it is there. And we also are now getting word that Chandler Martin, according to Jess Rubeck of The Athletic, is also signed with the Ravens practice squad. So Chandler Martin back. All right, those are two solid additions to start. What I would like to see next, again, a quarterback. Looks like that could be Tyler Huntley. Brent Urban will probably be on there. I would like for them to get Garrett Dellinger back, who was their 7th rounder. Darian Dalcour. Obviously, Okoye would be a big one for me as well. Malik Cunningham as well. Scotty Washington, I assume. So again, those moves will trickle in over the course of the rest of the day. We'll react to those when we can on Locked On Ravens just tomorrow. Or if the Ravens have another extension signed, if they sign another extension and we get to do that, that would be fun. That would be fun. And I see Kieran talking about it here. You upgrade Stevens with Jaire. Jaire Davis gets upgraded to a Woozy. And actually, I think I still have the graphic in here that I made a couple months ago about the upgrades. Do I? I might. Nope. Yep. Here we go. So this was the graphic I made a couple of months ago about just their secondary right now. You go from Brandon Stevens or, JAD to Jaire Alexander, Marcus Williams to Malaki Starks, and Eddie Jackson to Jadobi Awuzie. Or you can mix and match any of those three however you want to. That's insane. It's night and day compared to where they were last year to where they are now. It's night and day. The secondary is by far like the strength of this team. You feel really, really, really good about it. I love the defensive line. Like, I think the D-line room is always kind of my favorite in the NFL, but man, that secondary group is just crazy. It's crazy. So I think, in my opinion, the Ravens have a really good thing going. You have to make these tough decisions when you cut down, and with that does come losing talent. And again, I was only expecting Jalen Davis to get claimed. We've seen years like with our Darius Washington where he was not claimed, right? That was the crazy part about it, where he was not claimed. But in my opinion, it's not necessarily overly surprising to me. So I see Ravens 76 be more saying Hamilton and Starks together for 5 years. Keep cooking EDC. Yeah, and we can go over like Eric DeCosta's offseason, by the way. I think the Ravens Realm put this out. So shout out to him on Twitter as I read this out. Eric DeCosta's offseason includes signing Jaire Alexander and DeAndre Hopkins, drafting Malaki Starks and Mike Green. You got 4 extensions in there with Derrick Henry, Rashod Bateman, Ronnie Stanley, and Kyle Hamilton. Right? Obviously, the undrafted players, he and his team were able to get those. Some of the later round draft picks, kind of rounding out the roster with other moves, re-signing like a Patrick Ricard. About as picture perfect of an offseason as you could get from the Ravens. And Steve, I see Albert Breer just released the details on Hamilton's extension. Let's go see these are some of the fun things about these lives. You can go and breaking news happens and we can go look at it together. So let's go see this. Albert Breer, where are these numbers? Here we go. Albert Breer. Thank you, Steve. More on safety Kyle Hamilton's 4-year, $100.4 million extension. All records for the position. All records. So we're going to read these out. $48.023 million fully guaranteed. The $82 million is an injury guarantee. You have $26.9 million in a signing bonus and $43.5 million in new money through the first of the new year, or through first new year. So well-deserved. This was a deal that, again, I thought needed to get done sooner rather than later. That's exactly what happened here. And I'm pumped. I'm excited. And honestly, if there's a player that deserves that money at that position, it is Kyle Hamilton. He was always going to reset the market. There was not a doubt in my mind about that. And, here we are talking about him being the highest paid. And I don't know if anybody's going to break that deal for a little while, but in terms of the guaranteed money, that to me is where, as I mentioned earlier, the market was set. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we're going to just dive into some general Ravens news, notes, and quotes. We'll still react to practice squad moves that are coming in right now. So be sure you stay tuned. A lot coming your way on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. So you can do player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game really more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. And it's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. And look, those Ravens games they're going to be feeling pretty energetic this year with obviously the expectations around the team. Lamar, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers on that offensive side of the ball, making things happen. So if you want to add a little more of that, be sure you head over on FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, reacting to the Kyle Hamilton extension news, as well as waiver claims, practice squad. This is a crazy time. Actually, we have other news as well. Rashee Rice accepted his 6-game suspension, which means he will officially miss the Ravens game. So there was some speculation about that happening, not happening. Well, now you have the Ravens going out there without Rashee. Well, the Chiefs will go out there against the Ravens, without Rashee Rice. Be sure you check into everything we got going on Locked On Ravens, all the Ravens coverage and content you need right here on this show. Locked On Ravens regular show 5 days per week, instant reaction shows. We actually just hit 14,000 subscribers in video form. That was my goal before the season, and we hit it. So thank you for all the support. Be sure to tell a friend, tell a family member we're here for them, just like we're here for you on Locked On Ravens. And be sure you can follow me on social media, ChaosStriker34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. Look, this to me is exciting. It's exciting. The Ravens season is back in less than 2 weeks, about a week and a half now at this point. They'll be going to Buffalo to play the Bills. You love it. You absolutely love it. And I think at this point, oh, here we go. We're getting more news. Jess Rebeck reporting that CJ Okoye is planning to re-sign to the Ravens practice squad. CJ Okoye is back. Love that. That was one of the ones I really, really wanted. But apparently, and if this is the correct Jason Jones, I think there were 2 in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Ravens defensive lineman Jason Jones is signing with the Buccaneers practice squad. So I think that they get Okoye, but they lose Jason Jones. At least that's what it looks like here, unless it's a different one. So Ravens are losing a decent amount of talent here, but you know what? That's what happens when you're a good team. We talked about that. That is what happens when you are a good team. So it's fine. It is fine. And this kind of goes, Steve, with your expectations here, Super Bowl or bust. For the Ravens, and I talked about this. It's not the Ravens building this roster up. I talked about how perfect it was on the show this morning with Sam and Njoku. It's a perfect roster, but not just because they have all this star power. It's not just about star power here if you're the Ravens. It's because you have depth, and it's because you have depth on depth. Yeah, it's the depth behind your depth, which makes this roster so perfect. We talked about it. The only player that would absolutely derail this Ravens season to be lost if he was to go down for the season is Lamar Jackson. And we're not manifesting that. We're knocking on wood. You hear it right here, hopefully. Right? Maybe not. Maybe you can't hear it, but I can hear it. I'm knocking on the wood of Lamar Jackson, no injuries at all. But if anybody else goes down other than Lamar, they have the depth to at least go out there and make a run. I mean, if I'm not going to throw names out there in the universe because I feel like that's bad luck. And I feel like I'd get in trouble here for people watching and listening. I feel like I'd get in trouble for doing that. But, just in general, the Ravens have been one of the healthiest teams in the NFL. I think they were the healthiest team in the NFL last season. So naturally, with injuries happening, you hope that can continue for a 3rd straight season. But if it doesn't, for example, Isaiah Likely, that's a really unfortunate injury. So it's unfortunate. But you know what? They have Mark Andrews and they have Charlie Kohler still in that room. Some teams would love to have just Likely or just Andrews and Kohler in their room. That's how big this is for me. So there's a big situation with the Ravens right now where everyone's talking about Super Bowl. And look, it's true. If the Ravens don't win a Super Bowl this year with this roster, it absolutely is a disappointment of a season. It is. That's my opinion. I think that the Ravens have a lot of things that they can improve on, obviously, from a playoff perspective. Hopefully they don't start as slow this season, right? There are a lot of things here, but Ravens 76 more says that if the Ravens play their game instead of their identity, no team can beat us. And that's some of the frustration that we've seen from the Ravens over the last couple of seasons, where particularly in that 2023 AFC Championship game, they run the ball 6 times with their running backs. How did they get there? By running the ball. So, that to me is just kind of you do one thing and then you maybe get in your own head a little bit. if they do just play their game, like Ravens 76 be more 100% correct. If they do play their game, it's going to hopefully result in a lot of good for the Ravens this season. I'm still trying to peruse here on social media. It doesn't look like anything else has happened. And again, those moves will filter in throughout the day. It'll probably be a multi-day thing for the Ravens. Really big news on Okoye, though, which was awesome. Yeah, so Jason Jones, I just want to clarify, it was the Jason Jones from the Ravens. So apparently he had interest from several teams, that coming from Aaron Wilson. So right now the Ravens practice squad looks like Lucas Scott, Chandler Martin, CJ Okoye, and I believe that's it. There's been no official word on the quarterback. I know Huntley's in Baltimore, but it doesn't look like that is official yet. Maybe it could be, maybe it wouldn't. I said on the show yesterday, it was probably either going to be Leary or Huntley. Huntley was such the obvious move. Here on asking, are we at the point where just making the Super Bowl is a disappointment? If we make it, we better win. Oh, this is a good question, actually. So my thing with linear growth, and I've been saying this for years on this show at least, is, and this goes back to like the Greg Roman days, because I wanted to see that growth. Like when the Ravens made the divisional round in 2019, Lamar's second season, I was kind of along those lines of, all right, you're not going to like, is it going to be a year you make the AFC Championship the next year and then the Super Bowl the following year? But it ended up not even being that. Now, for linear growth, making the Super Bowl, like this is the conversation they have with the Bengals, right? The Bengals beat the Chiefs. They made the Super Bowl back in 2021. And everybody clowns the Bengals because they made the Super Bowl, but they didn't win it. No one cares if you make the Super Bowl, right? Only what matters is if you win it. So technically it'd be growth for the Ravens, right? Technically making the Super Bowl would be a step in the Lamar Jackson era that they have not been on before. They have not been to that level. But you only have rosters like this. It's very rare you have a roster like this. It's not that the Ravens aren't going to be able to build good rosters after this season. It's not that at all. They will. But to be able to have, in my opinion, a top 10 corner on a $4 million deal like the Ravens do with Jaire Alexander, for the Ravens to have a lot of these guys still on rookie contracts right now, like Hamilton's extension doesn't kick in. Linderbaum, he's on his rookie deal. Flowers. You have a real opportunity here to win the Super Bowl. And I think if you don't do it, I'm not saying they're never going to get there, never going to win. If they don't do it this year, that'd be a little disingenuous of me because I don't believe that. But this is one of the best shots that they are probably going to have in the Lamar Jackson era to do so. So if they make it and they run into a team like the Eagles or the Lions or whoever, the Rams, like whatever team you want to throw in there from the NFC, and they don't win it, you kind of look at that and you're like, well, okay, are we gonna what's there to celebrate? They got the job done for every single step except the last one. So the growth itself would be positive. And if the Ravens make the Super Bowl, I'll just let everybody know the Ravens probably will not fire John Harbaugh if they make the Super Bowl but don't win it, right? But, like we saw with Joe Burrow, he makes it, what was it, his second season, if I'm not mistaken, a second year, and then he's never even come close to going back. So when you get to that moment, you absolutely have to take advantage of it because you don't know if you're going to see it again. I anticipate Lamar making it to a couple of Super Bowls, but you don't know that. Nothing is guaranteed in that regard. So you have to take advantage, and signing players like Kyle Hamilton long-term, that's going to be one of the main things you give yourself if you're the Ravens that gives you a shot every year to go and make a run. So look, big news for the Ravens, news continuing to trickle in. As I mentioned, we'll dive into the latest as we go out there. And yep, here it is. Adam Schefter, Baltimore signing Tyler Huntley-Dewitt's practice squad. The news everybody was waiting for. We all knew it was happening. Now I got to go and put out my funny tweet. So be sure you stay on the lookout for that one. So we get some nice little breaking news at the end of the episode here. Appreciate everybody for stopping in, tuning in, watching, and listening to this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. Be sure on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. We'll be right back here tomorrow talking more Ravens football. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.